Imagine for a moment that the person sleeping next to you is not really your refuge, but your greatest threat. That the smile that caresses you today can turn tomorrow into the invisible dagger that pierces your most intimate security. It's not an exaggeration, it's biology. We carry inside us a program as old as our bones, a script written by millions of years of evolution that still moves your emotions as if you were a puppet, even when you swear you choose freely. That sigh you feel when someone attracts you, that knot in your stomach when you suspect betrayal, that dull rage you can't explain. They don't come from nowhere. They are invisible threads, and in this video I'm going to show you how the most uncomfortable science has exposed them without mercy. There's a truth you don't want to hear. What you call love is also an ancestral battlefield. And the unsettling thing is that even if you believe you've escaped the jungle, your mind is still hunting. Studies have shown it with raw clarity. Women, from the deepest part of their unconscious, are drawn to signals of provisioning and stability, because for millennia, that was the difference between life and death. Men, on the other hand, are dragged by a radar that never rests, one that lights up with youth and fertility, because their lineage depended on it. These aren't conscious decisions. They're impulses that keep dictating what you call attraction. And here's the kicker. Everything you think is romantic may simply be biology in disguise. I want you to ask yourself something uncomfortable. What would happen if you discovered that your jealousy is not the result of your insecurity, but of a machine programmed to survive? Think about this. For many men, sexual infidelity hurts like a dagger, because in the gut of their minds, the fear of raising a child that is not their blood is activated. For many women, on the other hand, what's unbearable is emotional betrayal, because it implies losing resources, protection, and security. It's not coincidence. It's not weakness. It's pure evolution filtering into your sleepless nights. And if you think you've understood everything, wait. Because there is an even more stealthy enemy: relational aggression. We're not talking about blows, but social poison. That manipulation disguised as subtle comments, rumors that destroy reputations, smiles that hide daggers. What's fascinating is that this form of attack is learned from childhood, honed in adolescence, and dragged into adulthood. Want a disturbing fact? Whoever masters those tactics doesn't need to shout or hit. They destroy from within, while the victim smiles, believing they're safe. But the intrigue multiplies when we talk about the chemistry of your brain. They've sold you oxytocin as the love hormone, the one responsible for making you feel bonded to someone. And yes, in part, it is. But it's also a double-edged weapon. In women, it acts like an emotional glue that ties them to the bond. In men, it can become gasoline for their vigilance, their jealousy, their territorial instinct. It's not the hormone of peace, it's the hormone of intensity. And if you don't understand that, you risk giving yourself over to a biological drug that doesn't control reason, but your darkest instinct. Now I want to throw you a promise, but be careful. You might not like it. If you stay until the end of this video, you will never look at love the same way again. You will discover that behind your romantic decisions, there are impulses you didn't ask for, programs you didn't write, and shadows that manipulate you in silence. But you will also learn something more powerful: how to see those invisible threads, how to recognize the traps of your own biology, and how to reclaim a margin of freedom in terrain where almost no one is free. Knowledge hurts, but it frees. What you're going to hear today is uncomfortable, but it can completely transform the way you love, desire, and choose. Because what you're about to discover isn't just theory, it's a brutal mirror. It will show you why you feel what you feel, even if you never admit it out loud. It will reveal why you are attracted to people you know will hurt you, why your mind obsesses over the forbidden, why the shadow of jealousy consumes you even when you trust. And when you understand the origin, you'll be able to do something that very few achieve. Stop being a mere product of evolution and start choosing for real. Prepare yourself. What comes next is not a romantic tale nor a bedtime story. It is the hidden side of love, the one that beats in the darkness of your brain and dictates who you are when you believe you love. And I warn you, once you know it, you can't go back. Ready to face your shadows head on? The curious thing is that we believe our desires are spontaneous, when in reality they are choreographies written by someone thousands of generations ago. And here enters an even more disturbing terrain. The subtle changes that occur in the body without you noticing. Those invisible micro-adjustments that guide your attraction as if you were a magnet. There are studies that have revealed how, during ovulation, many women feel a slight but clear shift in their preferences. Without realizing it, they become attracted to traits of greater dominance, deeper voices, more confident gestures. They don't plan it. They don't seek it consciously. It's biology activating an ancestral radar that whispers, "This profile increases your chances of robust offspring." And the unsettling thing is that this radar turns off afterward, leaving reason to deal with bonds that perhaps were born from a temporary impulse. The same happens with the way we interpret closeness and distance in a relationship. You think it's simply a personal whim, but science shows there's a delicate play of tensions, where the need for attachment mixes with the fear of loss. And in the middle of that dance, the mind develops strategies that, although they may seem rational, are actually inherited control mechanisms. From compulsively checking your partner's gestures to deciphering silences that may mean nothing, each act becomes a desperate attempt to anticipate threat. Evolutionary psychology explains it without romance. Jealousy is not a mistake. It's an alarm system that evolved to protect emotional and reproductive investments. The irony is that that same system, in excess, can destroy what it intends to preserve. And here, another unsettling angle appears. Covert emotional aggression within intimate relationships. We're not talking about physical violence or open insults, but micro-manipulation strategies that achieve the same objective: to subdue. Those dynamics that disguise control as care, that dress up as concern, but hide a trap. Apparently innocent comments that sow insecurity, subtle comparisons that lower your value, calculated silences that force you to chase attention. The most sinister thing is that these patterns don't arise in adulthood. They're early training. Boys and girls learn to manipulate bonds from the schoolyard, and those lessons embed themselves into adult life as relational weapons. Have you wondered how many of your current emotional scars come from that hidden training? We can't ignore another decisive factor: the weight of culture and social change. For centuries, norms dictated who should provide and who should care, who could choose, and who had to wait to be chosen. But that hierarchy falters when economic independence comes into play. What's fascinating is observing how, as women have gained autonomy, attraction criteria have also shifted. It's no longer enough to display status, because now value is redefined around the capacity for emotional connection, respect, and shared projects. However, biological instincts don't disappear. They keep pushing from below, creating a constant tension between what we consciously want and what we desire without understanding why. That internal struggle is the true modern battle of love, the collision between biology and freedom. And if we talk about freedom, we have to dive into the most dangerous paradox: the illusion of choice. They convince you that you decide who to share your life with, but every time you open a dating app, every swipe you make, every message you choose to send, it's guided by patterns your mind drags along without permission. You're attracted to body proportions, gestures, signs of health and energy, all before conversation even begins. The modern marketplace of love seems free, but in reality, it's the perfect stage where old biological algorithms are amplified. And the more you believe you choose, the more the data show that your decisions are written in a predictable script. The disturbing thing is not only recognizing that the invisible threads exist, but accepting that sometimes they combine with external forces that know how to use them against you. The advertising industry, the design of social networks, the romantic narratives of movies and songs, all feed on these evolutionary impulses to trap you. They sell you youth, they sell you status, they sell you security. They make you believe you choose, when in reality you only respond to triggers that have been working for millennia. And meanwhile, the cycle repeats: desire, attachment, jealousy, breakup, new desire. The wheel doesn't stop because it's coded into you. But here comes the most unsettling and at the same time liberating part. Understanding these mechanisms doesn't mean resigning yourself. It means observing them with awake eyes. Love isn't about escaping your biology. It's about knowing when you're being dragged by it. And when you manage to see it, something changes. You stop reacting like an animal on autopilot and begin to choose like a conscious being. That is the power this video promises you. Because if you dare to continue, you'll learn to spot the shadow behind the gesture, the instinct behind the thought, the trap behind the emotion. And most importantly, you'll learn to stop being a victim of your programming and become the author of your own story. Are you ready to discover how many of your choices were never really yours? And here is where we enter an even darker terrain: emotional memory. Because love is not only fed by biological instincts, but also by invisible scars you drag without realizing. Every breakup, every betrayal, every rejection you experienced left a chemical trail in your brain. The amygdala, that small sentinel of your fear, stores records that then mix with your new relationships. Thus, when someone takes too long to answer a message, it's not the weight that hurts. It's the echo of that time you were abandoned. It's the signal your brain interprets as danger. It's not the present that wounds you, it's the past you haven't let go. And here the dilemma appears. How many of your reactions in love are really yours? And how many are ghosts of experiences that should already be dead? Science describes it with brutal precision. Your brain doesn't seek truth, it seeks patterns. It prefers to be wrong and sound the alarm 10 times over to remaining silent and allowing a betrayal. That's why you see signs where there are none. That's why you suspect even when logic tells you otherwise. And the most unsettling thing is that excess of caution designed to protect you becomes the same force that sabotages your bond. Your mind wants to keep you safe, but ends up pushing you into the abyss it wanted to avoid. It's the cruel paradox of love. The instinct that promises to protect you is the same one that pushes you to destroy what you love. But not all is loss. Neuroscience has also shown that your brain's plasticity can rewrite the script. Oxytocin and dopamine, those molecules that can trap you in obsessions, can also help you consolidate new forms of bonding if you learn to create conscious experiences. This is where emotional education comes in. Not as empty rhetoric, but as a tool to domesticate the internal beast. Because when you recognize that the attack of jealousy isn't you, but an evolutionary alarm ringing out of place, you take a step toward freedom. The challenge is training the mind to differentiate the real from the ghost. And now I want you to think of something even more chilling: the influence of the group. Social psychology reveals that your romantic choices are not as private as you think. You're exposed to what they call the social validation effect. When you see that a person is desired by others, their attractiveness to your eyes automatically increases. You don't decide it, your brain does. It's the old tribal instinct that says, if many choose them, they must have value. And that effect multiplies on social networks, where likes and comments function as public proofs of desirability. What should be a space of freedom becomes a field of mass conditioning. How many times have you felt more attracted simply because you knew someone was admired? There you have proof that your freedom in love is much more limited than you imagined. And let's not forget another layer, that of power. In every relationship, there is a delicate balance of power, even if you swear it's a bond of equality. That balance expresses itself in who needs more, who can withdraw first, who risks more. And the unsettling thing is that that balance changes constantly, sometimes imperceptibly. One day you feel in control, the next you're begging for attention. What psychology has shown is that power dynamics feed on emotional dependence. Whoever fears losing less always holds more power. And here arises the uncomfortable question: do you really love, or are you simply fighting not to lose the upper hand? Modern love is full of discourses about freedom and choice, but beneath that varnish, the old rules still operate. Biology seeking to perpetuate the species, emotional memory repeating ghosts, social validation dictating attractiveness, and hidden power determining who dominates the game. And yet, the key is to recognize these forces, not to reject them, but to look them in the face. Because only when you identify the shadow can you decide whether you want to dance with it or walk away. What's fascinating is that each discovery in evolutionary psychology doesn't lock you into a destiny, but opens a window of awareness. Yes, your instincts guide you, your scars condition you, and society manipulates you, but none of that means you are doomed. It means you have the possibility of choosing with open eyes. And that choice, even if small, is what separates those who always repeat the same story from those who manage to write a new chapter. So stay, because what comes now is not a speech to reassure you. It's a mirror that will force you to confront the part of you you've always preferred to ignore. Do you want to see what you're really made of when you say you love? And now we have reached the point where you can no longer pretend you don't know. You have already seen how your emotions aren't as free as you thought, how your desire responds to invisible impulses, how your fears aren't whims but biological alarms. But here is the final revelation. Even when you understand it all, you continue to feel. And that is the most human thing we have. Because you can decipher the formula, you can understand the map of attraction, you can anticipate the traps of your biology. And yet, when someone looks at you in a certain way, everything collapses. And now that we've made it this far, before we continue, I want to present the following to you. Our book, The Formula of Awakening, is now available. Do you feel like there's something inside you that wants to awaken, but you don't know where to start? Then I invite you to transform your way of thinking, and with it, your way of living. Discover who you can become. Start today. The link to get the ebook is in the first pinned comment of this video. Grab your copy now at a great price. With that said, let's continue with the video. And that is not weakness. It is a reminder that we remain creatures made of flesh, chemistry, and scars, who learn to dance with our shadows, not to erase them. The unsettling thing is that true freedom isn't escaping these mechanisms, but embracing them without being devoured. Knowing that your jealousies can appear, but deciding whether to act on them. Recognizing that social validation influences you, but not surrendering blindly. Admitting that your personal history conditions your attachment, but not letting it dictate your destiny. That is the difference between being a slave to your programming and becoming its director. You don't need to eliminate the darkness. You need to illuminate it enough so it stops controlling you. And I want you to finish this journey with an idea that may bother you. There is no perfect love, nor a bond free of contradictions. What exists is conscious love, the kind that dares to look at the shadows and keeps choosing. Because in the end, it's not about feeling without chains, but about knowing which chains you wear and deciding whether they're worth dragging. That is the true power. Lucid choice amid biological chaos. So here's my proposal. If this video made you think, if anything you heard stirred you inside, write this sentence in the comments. I can see the invisible threads. It will be our secret signal, the mark of those who dared to look at what most prefer to ignore. And subscribe, because what comes next will be even more uncomfortable, more revealing, more brutal than everything you've just heard. See you in the next video. But until then, remember this. Love is not a fairy tale. It's a laboratory experiment that takes place inside your own body, and you decide whether you want to be the passive subject or the scientist who observes and takes control. And now, yes, close the door, turn off the lights, and listen to the echo of this truth. What you feel has never been innocent, and what you do after knowing it will be the proof of who you really are.